for property investors to maximise your tax returns. So there are 7 big ticket items that you want to be able to claim on your tax to maximise the amount that you can get back from the government, especially considering that we're only a couple of weeks away to the end of the financial year. Now, sooner, of course, that you get your tax done, the sooner you can get that money back, and the sooner you can have it sitting in against your mortgage, or even being able to use that money to invest further. So let's get stuck into these 7 tips. So the first thing that you can focus on is maintenance and repairs. So a couple of things you've got to know about maintenance and repairs. So any money that you spend on an investment property to maintain the property in its original condition. Now, there's a couple of things that you have to really watch out for here, and the tax office pay a lot of attention to what is a maintenance cost and what is an improvement cost. So if you're improving the house, then that's not something that you can claim every year as a tax deduction. It is something that you can depreciate, but not as part of the maintenance cost. So it's not something you can claim every single year. Maintenance costs are, say for example, you get natural wear and tear that you get with any property, whether it's an investment property or not. Any money that you spend on maintaining the house, fixing and repairing broken items in the house, that can all be claimed as maintenance and come off it will be claimed at the end of year tax return. So that's the first item. Secondly, depreciation. Now, this is something I want to spend a little bit of time on because this is a really big part of what you can get, or a really big part of the tax that you can get back on an investment property. But primarily the reason why I want to focus on this is because this is something that so many investors are missing out on, and I'm talking thousands and thousands and thousands. So let me briefly explain to you the concept of depreciation. So firstly, the best way to think about it is like this. When you buy a brand new car and you drive it off the lot, what happens? It drops in value. Now you've got to keep in mind that that's what happens with a property. Every year that you're maintaining, or every year that you own a property, it's getting older and older and older. G'day guys, thanks for saying hi. So every year the value of the building itself or the property itself is dropping. Now, of course, sometimes people find this a little bit hard to understand, because why would you buy an investment property if the value of that property is dropping? Now, there's 2 important components to any investment property. There's what we often refer to as the land value and the building value. The land is what is going up over time based on population growth and demand. The house is getting older, it's what's depreciating in value. The amount that house depreciates in value every single year is a tax deduction. Now, of course, like with everything, there's specific rules about how old a property is to enable you to claim depreciation, but there's 2 elements that come to it. There's the building cost, and then there's also the fixtures and fittings. So think about this: when you build a house, you got bricks and walls and roofs and that kind of stuff. That makes up the building part. And then you got things like fixtures and fittings, which include things like tapware, light points, all that kind of stuff. They're the fixtures and fittings. They do depreciate at a different rate. Now, you don't need to know about all this stuff. The way to do this is to get a depreciation report done. So it's got to be done by a licensed quantity surveyor. And then what happens is they can give that depreciation schedule to your accountant. Your accountant knows exactly to the dollar what they can claim every single year. Like I said, if you're a property investor and you're not claiming depreciation, it's something that you want to look into immediately, because it is a very big part of the tax advantages and something that you don't want to miss out on. So that's number 2. Thirdly, typically when people own a property, an investment property, they're going to have that property managed by someone, a property manager. All of these property management costs, when it comes to the leasing costs, the inspection costs, the g'day Peter, how are you? Living in the UK, how do you interact with the depreciation report? Well, if your investment property is here in Australia, you just get a depreciation schedule done here in Australia, and then you can claim that on your tax in Australia. I don't know the specific rules about the UK, so you might have to find out about that from a UK tax agent. Okay, so getting back to the property management, any of the fees associated with managing the property, that's also a tax deduction. That's something that you can claim at the end of the financial year. Interest. Most people, when they own an investment property, they typically borrow money. Okay, now normally this is from a bank. Any interest that you're being charged for loaning that money, you can then claim as a tax deduction. Okay. Let's move on to let's move on to tax costs. So the other thing you can claim as a tax deduction is any tax costs. So the depreciation schedule, as an example, you can claim that as a tax deduction. Getting your accountant to sit down and look over your investment property. If you're an investor, you can claim this stuff as a tax deduction as well. Insurance. Most people are going to be insuring their property, and in fact most banks won't allow you to own an investment property unless you've got insurance on it. And of course, if you're a property investor, it's very smart to also have something along the lines of landlord's insurance. Okay, so any of those policies, whether it be the building, whether it be the landlords, all that insurance cost is tax deductible. rates. Now, if you own a home here in Australia, whether it be you're paying council rates, water rates, whether it be you're paying strata rates, those kinds of things, all of these costs involved with owning an investment property are also going to be tax deductible. Now, the final one I want to throw in as number 7 are holding costs, because not all property investors own an investment property with a buy and hold kind of strategy. Okay, so there are people out there that will speculatively invest in property, i.e. buy a property, either hold on to it for a short time or do something to it, whether it be subdivide, renovate, those kinds of things, and then they will flip the property for a profit. Okay, so you can claim holding costs associated. So let me give you an example. Let's say you buy a block of land, can be subdividable into 3. You're going to hold that block of land, which means you're going to have things like interest. You're then going to subdivide that block of land so that you've got 3 separate blocks and then build 3 separate houses on that particular block of land. Okay, so the holding costs associated in particularly when it comes to things like the interest on the mortgage, in holding that investment property will also be a tax deduction. So let's just recap all of them, right? So we've got maintenance, repairs, just remember it can't be improvements. We've got the depreciation, the amount that the house drops in value every single year. We've got the property being managed, normally by an external source. We've also got the interest, we've got the tax costs, the insurance costs, the rates, and of course the holding costs. One thing that I do want to bring to your attention, in terms of property management, okay, there has been a change when it in the last budget, which will come in on the 1st of July, and this is with regards to travel costs. So previously, if you were travelling to a property to inspect it, to check it out, to conduct inspections, those kinds of things, you could claim that travel as a tax deduction. In the last budget, the government have eradicated being able to claim travel as a tax deduction. So this is the last thing that you can get this in. After that, you won't be able to do it any further. Now, of course, with all this stuff, everyone's situation is obviously complex and individual. So I highly recommend that you go and speak to someone like a tax specialist who can make sure that you're maximising your tax returns and, of course, clarifying anything that might be a little less clear than black and white. Okay. Thanks a lot for being with me here today, guys. We've got a blog article up about this in particular. I'll post the link as well. So if you want to actually go through and revisit what I talked about, look at it in more detail, you'll see the link on our blog. Thanks for being with us, guys. We look forward to speaking to you later in the week. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you guys being here. See you later.